Hello, welcome to the Honest Wargamer. I'm your chief toboggan artist, Rob, and today I am joined by, well, the regular Monday night crew. Nathan, how are you? As talkative as ever. Perfect. Yeah. And we're also joined by James. James, welcome to the show. How have you been? This is because it's birthday week. I'll talk about that in a moment. And we're also returned from the wild, having hunted the moose that offended him and decided to finally come in from the cold. Dan is back on the show. Hello, Dan. How are you? Oh, no. Hold on. Yeah, because I've muted you because Nathan's meant to be here, but he's not here, is he? He's bloody late. That's what he's doing. And do you know what he's doing? He's eating 8 pies. That's what he said he was doing. He's like, I've cooked and eaten 8 pies. Anyway, Dan, sorry, hello. Carry on.
Hello. I've finally I'm back. And thank you for your patience. I'm actually the hardest thing about this is I'm currently covered in maple syrup, as the only way to lubricate myself enough to get out of the moose that I had found myself trapped within the girthy bowels of was to squirt 16 liters of maple syrup both up its tuchus and down its throat until I was smooth enough to slide right out of there, like a toboggan down a chute, some might say. And so I have extracted myself from that moose, and I'm very happy to be back. I'm the most happy because this morning I woke up to a message saying that there were 2 big old boxes of Warhammer waiting for me to pick up downstairs in my apartment building, and I picked them up, and I'm very excited.
We're going to have a live unboxing, aren't we?
Yep, of what Dan bought.
Of what
Dan bought with his paycheck instead of paying his rent.
Which might give you some indication that there isn't much news today. That might be. But me, James, and Dan will be talking about the news, and we will be looking at, so very much like we did last week, we're going to be looking at Ogre Mawtribes, we're going to be looking at a list archetype, and we're going to be talking it through for ogres. So we'll talk about that more later. We'll do the news as well. Obviously, the big news is how we can do anything without Nathan. Nathan is indeed late. He might eventually arrive. We're not sure. What's weird is we're going to review or talk about a Destruction Battle Tome, and this is the day he's late. I don't know. I don't know if he planned it, if I'm 100% honest with you.
Maybe he's still trying to decipher the pop-up book.
That's true. It does take a little while. Turn on.
Well, actually, so one of the first pieces of news that I could talk about is that over the weekend, we talked about this obviously on the stat show earlier today, me and Owen, but just for you two for a quick catch up, because I know you were both at work today, or Dan, you were asleep, and James, you were at work. Sons of Behemoth played 3 times at the weekend. 3 different players take Sons of Behemoth, and they went 4-1. Each one of the 3 players 4-1. I think Nathan heard this, ripped his t-shirt off, and ran into the streets, screaming and punching and kicking over barrels. I'm not certain that's true, but that's the rumor that I heard. That's what I think happened. So it could be.
It sounds about right. It sounds very on brand for him.
It does. It does. Right, James, talk to us about this week. How have you been? I know you've been at work, but have you been able to do any hobby? And Stabber, thank you for resubscribing.
I have done tons of hobby this week.
Mm-hmm.
So I have been at work, but also, people that follow me on Twitter might have seen anyway. But at the weekend, I built. So after last week's show, I should probably say, why are you laughing?
Because of fucking Owen on Periscope every single time. Let's go Periscope posse.
I didn't even know Periscope was still a thing.
Periscope is 100% still a thing, and the only person who watches any of our content on Periscope is Owen. He writes in the chat, and everyone. The other week, someone was like, "What the fuck is Periscope?" And I was like, "It's a great point. Don't worry." Anyway, sorry. Carry on, James.
So after last week's show, I went to bed. Got the Zinch book, read some more Zinch book, brought a Kawara Spate Weaver.
What?
And so this weekend, I built a Kawara Spate Weaver, 8 more pink horrors that I found in a box in my house, and then 2 Blood Bowl teams.
Dan, how do you feel about this?
I just like, James, how's your left side? And do you smell toast? Because the only reason I could assume that you would choose to do something so dumbass bullshitty is because half of your brain stopped working. Fair warning, I don't understand how the human body works, much less how strokes work. But why would you make such a bullshit choice? And Kairos, like the chief dick bird. What do we call it? What do we call it on the
King Bin Chicken?
King Bin Chicken himself. There was whatever it was, Dickhead McChange Face or whatever he was called on.
That's the Lord of Change, to be fair.
Yeah, I mean, like I thought we had some kind of bromance going on with the last team that we were both playing for, which we don't need to go into. But I'm kind of scandalized that you'd do this. I was hurt when Rob did this, so the fact that you've done this is just fuck. It's Nathan's gonna drop in here and be like, "Oh, I bought a bunch of fucking Skyfires or something like that," and that's just gonna ruin my day.
There is number one, worst Zimbabwean accent I've ever heard. Number two, yeah, what was that? What was that? Like that colonial Zimbabwean accent? What hell? I'm Zimbabwean, I think, maybe.
That's what I was going for. I was going for the white man.
The white man Zimbabwean. All right. Yeah. And James, what is it that inspired you? I love that we inspired you last week. That's kind of like the purpose of the show a little bit.
So it was just that idea. So we talked about it last week, but that whole thing where you can just turn people into spawn. So what I want to do is play like a horrific list that turns people's favorite models into spawns, upsets them, and also, which I think I told you in the week, Rob, but the rest of the chat don't know, I want to create pink horrors from pink horrors, and then have one of those little soundboards on my phone that's the hello there from Jurassic Park when John Hammond keeps cloning himself.
Oh.
And I want the hello there of Ewan McGregor as Obi-Wan Kenobi. And so I'll be like, I'll roll a 1, gonna summon D6 pink horrors. Oh, it's 6. And then what I'll do is press once, put a pink horror on the board. Press another one, put a pink horror on the board. Press another one, put a pink horror on the board. And I just think, like, it doesn't matter who I'm playing. They're either going to love it or want to throw their beer in my face. And at both levels, it'll be enjoyable.
Okay.
I like that. I will give that a grudging pass because I personally love, and I've told the story about the bloke with the golden squig before, Tim from back in Australia. I love it when someone builds an army that isn't going to win, but does, like, so you're always going to lose to your opponent, but you do one thing that just breaks their mind. Like, you're not actually about beating them at the game. You're about breaking them as a hobbyist and a person. And because that's not playing the game, that's playing the player. And I'm all about that. I'm all about that. Just like the bloke with an army, all of squigs, who painted a squig, rolled a scattered dice every turn, and then charged his whole army towards it, while his opponent was like, why aren't you playing the game? And he's like, oh no, I'm not playing our game, I'm playing my game. And just like was a part of that whole thing. I can only wait until you get to the end of the game and your opponent's tallying up and they're like, okay, so a major win for me. And you're sitting down there with like some kind of abacus, just like sliding across beans for like how many. So this is how many heroes I tend to spawn. This is how many battle line, and this is how many other.
Yeah, so it even to the point, and I saw someone tried to call me out in the chat. Jacob Berry. Can't sport be Mark Cord. So to the point that one of my very good friends, Miles, and me chat Warhammer quite often, and he's been doing a corn list at the minute.
Mm-hmm.
And he was like, "Oh, I don't think Be'lakor is going to be 240 points anymore. He doesn't fit in my list." I've ordered a Bloodthirster, and I was like, "I'm going to buy a spawn. I'm going to paint it corn red. I might even give it a little Bloodthirster axe. And every game we ever play again, I'm going to turn that Bloodthirster into a spawn just to annoy you."
Okay, I'll take that. Jacob Berry in the chat, by the way, from the Rage of Sigmar podcast. James, have you ever listened to it? Because I'm pretty certain you messaged me earlier in the week saying that you thought that they were posers. Your exact word, you said they were posers, and I was like, wow. James, that is strong. Have you actually listened to it to make that assumption, or like what's going on?
They're
did I call them posers?
You messaged me.
Beautiful human beings. How could you do that, James?
Yeah, I
How
don't know what
could
that's
I
about,
already
James.
thought so poorly of you,
Yeah,
and then the
that's-
Zinch thing, and then it just went down, and now somewhere you're draining the molten core of our Mother Earth with the lowness of your behavior on this fine day.
How dare you,
could
James?
you?
How dare you? Also, someone was asking me about Warhammer the other day. They're like, what's it like? I was like, mainly the reason loads of blokes love Warhammer, well, ladies, everyone likes Warhammer, is because, like, it gets you out of the house and it gets you socializing. Like, it's so good for that interpersonal connection. You develop friends. You have these incredible times, these great stories. You know, it's really good for mental health. And then James has gone, yeah, I've bought an army specifically to target people's mental health. Yeah? As I generally bring back a pink spawn and we're like, hello there. Hello there. For 3 hours. For 3 hours of mental torture, James. What the fuck is wrong with you?
Every time that little spawn's face came out and you heard Ewan McGregor go, hello there,
Hello
would
there.
you smile or not?
I would not. I smile. Do you know what? Let's settle this. Give me a second. Let me sort this right out. Because
Oh, no.
I think we have got... Let me just check this out. I don't know if it's going to work. Hold on. Maybe. Is he in? He is in, but I can't. It's not working.
Hello
there.
there.
We go. Jacob Berry is on to refute the shit that you've been giving him. There he is on the chat. Jacob,
Get him!
welcome to the show.
Get him!
Hi.
How do you
My
feel?
name
The fact he's also Nathan.
And this is a hostile takeover. And we are
Back.
back.
Oh, thanks for joining us, Nathan, too.
Yeah. Oh, just sticking in my pants.
What, your sausages? You'll just stick your sausages in your pants?
What an icy. It was great. Hot things. Great.
He even looks like Nathan. Nathan from 20 years ago.
That may be the nicest thing anyone's ever said to me. I'm just gonna be here crying. Tears of joy.
Perfect. Jacob, we might as well catch up with you. Jacob, how you been? What's going on?
Been good, man. Been hobbying away out of pure spite and anger. It turns out that since the Hedonites of Slaanesh book has released, everyone has jumped onto my bandwagon idea of doing a dual army of Daughters of Cain and Hedonites of Slaanesh. I mean, Velatron is doing it, and his looks great. And Travis, the Vampires guy, is doing it, and his looks great. And Magro is doing it, so that's a thing. I'm fueled by the spite that these people are stealing my army idea after I've been waffling for pretty much all of COVID, getting nothing done. So now I'm like getting 2 hours of hobby in a night, just angrily glazing my models.
There's no better way to finish an army than out of spite.
Yeah, and I'm not used to it because usually my deadline is a tournament, but now it's just get to fucking market before Magro.
Just pure rage. It's like when a new army comes out, like brand new army with all the models, and like week 2, someone's like, I'm at the event with the army, and it looks like pure hot garbage, but they were the first ones at the event with it. Like, it's all about, like, just planting the flag, right? This is mine. Yeah. Anyway, is Jacob, like, 40 years younger than all of you? Look at that. What a compliment.
I'm going to find out who that was because I can't see the chat in Skype, and I'm going to give
Bobbin.
that person...
That's Bobbin.
Oh,
Bobbin's lovely.
Oh, my God. Will you go on a date with me? What continent are you on?
Sweden.
Sweet. That's not a continent, Rob.
I'm English. To me, that is a continent and also somewhere I don't want to go to.
It's post-Brexit, right? I'm pretty sure that England is now their own continent because the rest of the world shut down all the borders to them. They're like, no, we're not having any of that.
We get nothing out of our borders
How does
now.
walking to Wales work now? Because like you used to be able to do that, and no one knew when you crossed the border. And now, what is it, like armed guards and like crossing the checkpoint in Berlin?
Just a whole bunch of Welshmen with crossbows, I believe, just
if you-
camping out in the woods.
Yeah, if you go over to Wales, you have to take a can of cider and a pack of fags. Like, otherwise, you're not allowed in. I think
You can't say that. You can't say that. It's 2021.
Cigarettes.
There we go.
Hi, Margot. Hey, Margot. Big love to Margot, everyone. Jacob's gorgeous wife.
They're happy to see you.
We were going to get on with the show, I think. Dan has bought a bunch of Warhammer, and he's going to unveil. We're in the news section now.
Oh, are we in finding out what Drunk Dan ordered?
We are.
No, this was Sober Dan. Drunk Dan bought a box of Liberators 3 weeks ago.
I've met Sober Dan.
Yeah, no. Actually, you've got him right now, but not for long. It's a brief interlude. I was mostly sober, air quotes, mostly sober, for about 3 weeks straight there, just because I was working 15-hour days, and so I physically didn't have time to be drunk. And then today is my first day off in a very long time, and 2 big old boxes of War Dollies showed up. And I was like, yes. And then I was telling everyone, and then I realized what was in those boxes, and I was like, oh no. And now you're here to witness my shame as well. So.
Well, okay, so I want the Twitch chat to guess. If anyone's wondering why I've got the Saturday Night Fever logo behind me, it's actually our birthday week, as you know. This is the week leading up to the Stream Street birthday on Sunday. We'll have been live for 369 days. That's right.
Nice.
That's nice. Thank you. So we'll be live for that amount of time. Also, just quick FYI, 6.9 thousand subscribers on YouTube. So really hitting the stars are aligning right now.
Block anyone else who joins.
Yeah, no one else is allowed to subscribe. I'm actually turning the feature off now. That's it. We're capped out. So if you want to subscribe to us on YouTube, don't. That's what I'm telling you. I don't want you to do that.
There's somebody in marketing who's just vomiting excessively hearing you say those words.
What? Anyway, all right. Go on, Dan. What did you order? And Twitch chat, what do you think you ordered? Agent Nagash thinks you ordered 30 croaks. Go on, Dan. What was in there?
Okay, so first in the unboxing, we've got the Corvus Cabal. So we've got them, intending on not using any of them in Warcry, or even in their standard pieces. Then we have this blank white box, which it's probably mistagged. That's probably not what it actually is. It says High Elf Phoenix Guard, but it's probably not that. It's probably not High Elf Phoenix Guard. Though it might be. Then there's 2 boxes of Internal Guard.
Oh my god!
And then there's also 2 boxes of Shadow Warriors.
They're all elves, Dan. You dirty bitch! They're all elves.
Might be noticing that there's 50 elves in this box so far, and some men. And no dwarves. And you'd be right to continue believing that. Then we have 3 boxes of Graveguard in there too.
What?
So we needed those. 2 Pentiant Engines and a box of Skulls. And that's what Dan ordered. I'm pretty sure I was sober when I ordered this because I'm finishing my Lumineth, my converted Lumineth army. But obviously you need elves first before you can make them dead elves.
Right. Okay.
Relmar Winters says that you are way fucking past You're Curious, Dan.
Yeah.
It's true.
Yeah, it's really true. I really expect Dan to be a pointy elf-eared VTuber very soon. Like,
I'd look great in the corset. I could pull it off. Corset, fish
just a corset, right? Nothing else.
But I'd only shoot from the waist down. Up. Oh god. Yes. So the plan is to undeadify all of those and chop them up and slam them together and finish off my undead elf army. Because the only good elf is a dead elf.
We all agree, apart from Zeech James, which is just weird. James, you can just take a moment now if you want. Jacob, not really a big fan of the fact that you don't like corn. I don't know if you want to speak to that, James, for a moment.
No. I stand.
What I fucking thought, poser.
Get him!
Right, okay, let's move on to the news section because we do have some news. I've already talked about the first birthday. We've already done the review of the tournament stuff over the weekend, if you guys want to go and check that out from earlier today. The other news is about new releases. Specifically, I'd like to announce that the Age of Sigmar objective markers are returning. Hundreds of thousands of them are returning. If you didn't pick any clear plastic ones up, James has promised me that it's happening ASAP, I think is the... Is that correct, James?
Sure.
Oh, there we go. That's nice. So
You didn't expect that answer, did you?
I did not. I thought you'd be like, no. They're currently sold out, but they might return.
So I think, like, because now you've brought it up, like, we stopped for a bit. We had a load of stock. We were shifting that. And then we stopped because Brexit was screwing our postage routes, which some poor sods that brought stuff off us know, and some other poor sods who brought stuff off us don't know, because for some reason, things going to the same country is posted on the same day, in the same packaging and setup. Some came back, some didn't.
Mm-hmm. But we've actually solved that problem now. Most people don't realise. We've hired some young ne'er-do-wells. Anyone who watched the Russell Crowe version of Robin Hood, I would like to point out the worst version of Robin Hood. There is at the end. I don't want to go on a tangent here, but very quickly, at the end, Maid Marian turns up to defeat the French, fully plate-mailed armoured French warriors. Yeah, with young boys on ponies with sticks. Ridiculous film. Yeah, definitely worth a watch. However, but
without all that armor, they were a lot more agile, which is probably how they won. You know, like the Viper of Dawn beat the Mountain in Game of Thrones. Fact.
No. What's the stick gonna do?
You just turned that episode off out of excitement, didn't you?
What do you mean? He stabbed him, he fell down, he died, stop the show. Done.
Right, exactly.
Finish.
The finish. Anyway, my point is, we found some small local boys to pack mule across the border. James thinks it's legal. We're checking some stuff right now. James,
it's definitely legal because they're swimming the crossings.
Oh, okay.
Should be fun. Your rings might get wet, but they're plastic, so it's fine.
Jacob, you wearing undergarments right now?
Oh, funny you ask. I was just doing a mid-episode set change, and I put on my branded undergarments.
Perfect.
That's right, then.
Shifting left and right and been confused by that. It was because I was taking off my pants on the air.
Anyway, right, so the next news item, other than the return of the objective markers, which is quite exciting, is that there is two news items, really. Number one, the announcement of a Seraphon warband for not Warcry, in fact, Underworlds, that game Dan seems to like online. And the only... Although, actually, little side note, I got told yesterday or the day before, there's a 300... Well, before COVID, a 300-person event for Underworlds that happens in Sweden. 300 people, which is truly bananas.
Jacob, I don't know if many people in Sweden.
Do they have that many people in Sweden?
Yeah, like I just assumed that there was like a couple of them hunting elk or something.
Mostly reindeer, but yeah, you're right on. Okay. Yeah, the demographics check out.
Yeah, that's close to the numbers, I think. The point is like I hadn't heard that it was such a popular game. I don't know, Dan and Jacob in your local area, so Canada and America. Do we? It's kind of like good bit, bad bit. Do you? I'll let you choose.
You're not wrong.
Is there a big scene for Underworlds or not really?
I don't go outside, so I don't know.
I more meant before the times.
I didn't really go outside then.
We had, like, Australia had a pretty strong scene. Like, it was pretty good. There was a lot of people excited by it, but that was back before I left, and I think release fatigue started to burn out a lot of people who were enjoying it. Because I know I loved it, and I still do, but I very much don't. I don't think I've played it, not just because of COVID. I don't think I've played it in person in a very long time, because keeping up with the constant releases became impossible, just with how fast and stuff was coming out. Exciting for the game, but also like wearying as a player. But that's where I transitioned to online. But it was quite big in Australia. I haven't seen a lot of it here in Canada, though.
I've seen up to 50 player tournaments at large GTs. It seems like it's occupying the space of Thursday or Friday game before a 2-day GT. It seems like it's still most of the same people, but it's definitely got more market penetration than, say, Warhammer Champions. Like, I couldn't tell you a single person I know who's bought a pack of that.
That's that was the TGC game, right?
Yes, TCG.
Yeah. What did I say? TGC.
You said BBC, which was weird. I don't want to know your search history, Rob.
It's only Centaur, ladies. We all know that.
Oh my God, is that part of our news? I really want to talk about this.
We are not talking about it.
That is... All of them are wrong.
That is. We're not talking about it ever. That's really important. Okay, yeah. So new. So the new, and it's a Seraphon warband. This is the point. Now, we know Morgweith the Unbloody. Jacob, as a big Daughters of Cain fan, Morgweith making it into a lot of your lists?
If I'm ever writing Hagnar, she's in every one. And if I can't afford a normal hag, which is pretty bad if you're like really scraping for points in the Daughters of Cain book, because everything is probably like 10 to 20% too cheap, I'll occasionally throw her in other allegiances. But because she doesn't benefit from other factions, she's sort of only a no-brainer choice in Hagnar.
Well, so the Seraphon warband coming out, I thought we would take a moment to try and guess what it might be. There's the kind of fun things and what we might see in it. Dan, I don't know. Oh wait, James, if you somehow started to sell the objective markers again in the time since we've been live, what the hell?
Yeah. And since you just told me we were doing it,
I was just fucking busting your grills. That is too effective. Don't do that. Don't buy them. No one buy them because James has to post them. You're not allowed. That's the first thing I'm saying. So yeah, Dan, have you got any thoughts on what the Seraphon warband rules might be? You got okay? Anyone feel free to chip in. Yeah, go for it.
Here's what I think, based on background experience with all of these things. I would be excited for them to add some new rules or a new mechanic or something that offers another little fun little tidbit play style in there. Not massively army changing, but something interesting. I expect it to be just more of the same of what those models already do. Like a skink priest with a retinue, basically, is all I'm expecting we'll see. I want it to change stuff up. I want it to be cool. I don't think it will be. Okay. I hate to be the downer on that one, but just every single time those warbands come out, I look at them and I'm like Thundrix Profiteers, I was like, wicked, we're going to get a different... This was when everyone was using chemists to add one to the attacks of a particular weapon, right? Most of the time, light skyhooks. And then I was like, cool, you're releasing it. The rules are released digitally. So it's not like they're in a book and you have to change them. You just freaking copy, paste, delete, retype, whatever you want. And I was like, great, it'll be a different thing. I don't want it to be even as strong. I just want a different option for a chemist. And then it came out and it was pretty much exactly just more of the same, and no one took him because it was basic. And that has been my experience of most of the Warcry ones. Every time I get excited, and most of the time I'm let down.
You basically got the world's bitch.
You're basic.
Yeah. But then you get some that are amazing and make their way into every single army of that type. And that's the thing that really frustrates me, is you have like this, like we talk about parity, and yes, it's huge, but how are so many of them so blindly bad? And then like one or two are spectacular. And I'm talking about the whole life of the entire game of Underworlds. This has been the case. It's not like they go like, oh yeah. And then it's just like, you never take them, never take them, never take them, never take them. Always in every single army, never take it. There's like 2 or 3 always in every armies. And every other one is just hot garbage. Just garbage poured into the orifices.
Isn't one of the ones that's always in every Warband a Beast of Chaos one though?
Yes.
I mean,
not always, but it is really good. Like,
but when your army's that bad, it probably helps.
How dare you? How dare you? I'll have you know that they're all they are one of the best of like No.
I love
they
BC
suck.
That was
Chaos,
a
but
really
they're on
cogent response there, Rob.
Yeah,
You were doing great.
I mean, I'm on an
Don't you
awkward
talk
step
to
at the
me
minute.
or my goat ever again, James.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. All right, Jake, have you got any thoughts on what we might see for the Seraphon Warband?
I'm honestly hoping that it functions sort of the same as like Magor's Fiends, where you sort of get a little taste of a couple different units at the same time, but not being better than the units. Just sort of a fun little thing you could throw in that, like, it's a little more expensive than a basic unit, but you get a little more utility out of it. But knowing GW, like, it could be 40 points and 3 wizards and come with the Gabapalooza battalion on it.
I think they probably are going to do like 3 mortal wounds to everything within 6 inches of them for the whole game, every phase.
Right.
That's what I think their rules will be. 40 points. That's probably about right.
What they have done, they set a bit of a precedent that depending on the special rules of the units that are sort of being piecemealed in, they'll pick up those special rules, like the Bloodstalker in Morgwith's Blood Coven, right? She does mortal wounds on 6s to hit for her shooting attack. Or what's there's like mortal wounds coming off of 6s to hit from the Slanesh, what are they called? The Dread Pageant, right? So like they pick up some of the special rules, but not all of them, right? In Magor's Fiends, Riptooth, the single Fleshhound can unbind a spell, but they don't tend to give all of the special rules. Right, so like there's no 6-inch pile-in coming off of the one Sister of Slaughter in Morgweth's group. So I'm hopeful that they just put an ounce of thought into the like Mod Podge soup that they're going to make this War Scroll, and hopefully with that, I mean, they're probably going to give Seraphon another way to stack a +1 to hit or a +1 armor save or something with the Star Priest that's going to be there, but maybe it'll function in a way that you're not going to see it spammed, because they don't need another thing to make them impossible to ban against in the Super Series when it comes back.
They do not. That is true. Good shout. Good shout! And also, nice plug, you babe. All right, so thank you. So that's the Seraphon Warband out of the way. And then the only other real news is, of course, that there is another preview this weekend, and we've heard about some Age of Sigmar stuff. So lots to like. We already know the next 2 Broken Realms, right? We know Teclis and we know Bellicor. I wonder if you guys have got any thoughts on what you think we might see or what you're excited about. We also know Soulblight Gravelords are still to come out. So yeah, have you guys, James, you got any thoughts on what you'd like to see?
I think like the start of what we saw from that was pretty cool anyway, the vampire stuff. So it'd be nice to see more of the same. I guess it'd be nice to see almost a whole new army and them not recycle those very now very old like skeleton models. Especially as I always preferred the Tomb King's skeletons, I guess, because they were more exciting, I think. So it'd be nice to see that. Do you know what I'd really like to see?
Tell me.
A timeline.
A roadmap.
A roadmap, that's the one.
You and me both. We all want a roadmap. Dan, you got any thoughts on what you'd like to see from the weekend?
I'd just like to see him get a Grammy, really. The fact that he's been snubbed is just really brutal, and so I'd love to see him just get a look in. You perform at the Super Bowl, you've been at the top of the charts for a full year.
I was not impressed with the Super Bowl performance. A lot of people, it was either up here or way down here for you, and I just didn't understand it. It went over my head.
I'm just a messy prick who loves drama. I don't think I've ever watched the Grammys. I have no idea. I can't imagine that watching any kind of awards show like that in the middle of COVID is a good time. Sorry if you think it is. But that was just you were lobbed that across the plate for me, Rob. And even my slow, poor, dexterous hand-eye coordination could smack that one. It's
okay. Little side note: if you do love messy drama on the internet, don't know if any of you have ever got into beauty guru chatter. Not really my like. I don't generally tend to watch makeup tutorials. I think I watch the average amount of makeup tutorials that everyone watches. But the
3 a day, right? 3 a day.
At least 2. So the
just blotting my lipstick is hard. Anyway,
I'm just giving you some time to think there, Dan. That's what I was doing. I was filling the air
no,
as a
professional.
professional.
Beauty guru.
Giving you some time. Jacob, what would you like to see from the weekend?
OCR Bone Reaper Arrow Boys. Just like 120 points for 20 wounds worth of ranged support for OCRs, because you know what the game needs more of right now is shooting.
Yeah, don't you think? Especially Bone Reapers, that catapult's not enough shooting.
Yeah, no, exactly. And obviously that's going to be probably, I mean, okay, I say obviously, and that guarantees I'm going to be wrong. But obviously that's going to be coming out with the OBR Underworlds set, right? Like that seems like a pretty solid bet. I'm hoping to see more of the Gravelords. I'm hoping they flesh it out, because right now we've seen either a couple of characters or just teasers into what the line is going to look like. But everything they've released thus far has been either Underworlds or Heroes, and I would love to see. I mean, like, everyone's chomping at the bit for new Blood Knights. If we see that, that'd be great. If we see just sort of vampire infantry, that'd be super cool. Or just an idea of what to expect from the Gravelords and the Cursed City releases. Honestly, I don't ever expect clarity from the previews. That's more like their hype machine, and then they'll tell us later on like when stuff is coming out. But it's very confusing to me that we've gotten a release trailer for Broken Realms Be'lakor, but we haven't gotten a release trailer for Techless. It's like people have forgotten
there was a video.
There's going to be a Broken Realms Techless, and it's I guess you're right. That's when they teased all the Ruru riders.
Yeah.
But it's really baffling to me that they're already showing previews for Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban, but they haven't actually released the Chamber of Secrets yet. Like, I don't know how he's going to survive that fucking snake. What's it going to be about? Probably Harry Potter's twin cousin. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, we know he survives because he's got a sequel in the works, I guess.
Right, so we know that the Broken Realms obviously survive the Techless.
They're not that broken. They're more of the lightly scuffed realms that need a bit of a polish. I personally, coming out of the weekend, I would just really like to see, and I won't, I'm wrong, I'm 100% wrong, but I'd like to see some models and some updates for a book that's more than 18 months old. That's what I would like to see.
Beast of Chaos.
I know I won't, because that's not how we do it. We like to update a handful of books on a 6 to 12 month cycle and bugger off everybody else. But I would really like to see some of those older books, not even the ones right at the edge of their lifespan, but just some of the older ones. I'd like them to get a scratch of a look in, because I've made it no. Sorry,
like Stormcast.
Maybe not them. Maybe not them. Anyone but them.
What if they redid the Liberators War Scroll and made them not awful?
I don't know how I'd feel about that. I think I'd need some time in a dark room with a bottle of whiskey and just a mirror to look into the void that is the hole in my soul where the memory of Liberators live, and that's where I'd need to find it. No, it's about me being broken inside, not about me being perfect. And yeah, but I love to see some love for some of the old books. Thank you. I mean, I that's why I say that, to fish for compliments. So
why are you thanking me for me calling you broken?
I thought you were calling me beautiful.
These two things. ¿Por qué no los dos?
¿Por qué no los dos? Like a beautiful mosaic. Anyway, can we move on with something that's not about how I look? I'm feeling very objectified.
That's fine. We're gonna. Jacob is gonna do his shout outs before he heads out. And then we're gonna tag him in. This is our very first live tag team. We've never done this before. So
Fuck,
Jacob,
you're making me leave. Fine, all right. Let me pull up my Twitter, and everybody that liked my latest post is gonna get a shout out. Okay, I'm just kidding. That'll take way too long. I have far too many followers. Hair flip.
Right, why don't you just shout out all the people that didn't like your post and call them bastards?
Yeah, that's easier.
That'll take a lot less time. No, my shout out is obviously to the only man who will ever occupy my heart, and that's Joe Pagano, who is the other member of the Rage of Sigmar podcast. Also, fun fact, if you check his Wikipedia article, nothing in there says anything about being a poser.
However, well, that's what James said, so just
wait 5 minutes.
until it gets edited.
I'm imagining the Kermit typing GIF now.
All right, Jacob, thank you for being on the show. It's been a delight.
Yeah, thank you for letting me hostilely take over your show and fill some space. Before I go, I do want to say everyone should buy the objective markers. Having played with them, they're amazing. I played with them twice and then promptly lost them, so I'm going to be buying my second set of objective markers.
Oh, no.
And I don't know when people can order these again, but I think it's only right that I go out showing off
the Undergargants.
It's like he never left.
It's like he never... Oh!
God.
Don't worry, Twitch. Terms and services. That was a finger.
That was a thumb.
Dear God. Dear God. Goodbye.
I just thought we got banned.
Oh, dear. Oh, dear. My entire career. Come on. I wanted to be a partner. But thankfully... Bye, Jacob. Love you.
Fuck you, buddy.
Fuck you, buddy. Right, okay, so I'll just let you two take over for a moment. What a lovely fella. And if you guys want to go and check out his podcast, he does it with his bestish mensch, a fella called Joe Pagano. And I got to tell you that they're some of the kindest and funniest people that you're going to ever hear. And they're terrible. Yeah, spectacular humans. Yeah. Thanks to Zol. Let's get reported. Thankfully it was a finger. Right. Live. Oh yeah, hold on. Wait, is this Jacob or is this like... It's still Jacob, he just looks way older now. Nathan?
He can't hear you.
No, that's because he's just a picture on the Undergargants. That's not actually... You need to cut to a camera, Rob.
Oh, right.
Not just more like stop showing more stuff for your thing.
Has Nathan got a different beard this week?
Hello, Nate.
Hello.
Hey!
Oh, I turned it on. Fuck.
We did it. It's so nice to see you. You were late. We had your younger self on previously.
Good. That guy needs to fucking catch a wake up.
He does. He's not OSHA approved, is he? Let's be serious for a moment. Nathan, thanks for joining us. You missed the news section, so we're going to have to quickly catch up. Ask you how are you? Are you well?
Yeah, all good. Yeah. Just had a busy day, so yeah, I'm in now.
Have you done any painting this week?
No. The poor old Gargant has not had a paintbrush on him this week, so he's still at 53.6%, whatever it was. So yeah, there you go.
Very sad.
It was Mother's Day yesterday, so I had to move some beehives, so that's all I did. Not painted anything.
You had to move some beehives.
Sorry, what? No, yeah.
You
can't rewind there for 30 seconds. You can't let that go. Do you assume that moving beehives is something that other people do on Mother's Day? Like that's just a regular thing?
Well, there were other blokes doing it with me, so yeah, I just assumed everybody did it.
Wait, so you're all moving... What did you move a beehive for?
Just not for anything. I just moved it because they asked if I wanted to help them. So I said, yeah, that'd be cool. I've not done that before.
I get that. I get it. But the fact that the way you phrased it was just like, oh yeah, it was Mother's Day, so I moved the traditional Mother's Day beehive. Like it was like the rest of the world on Mother's Day is just like going like, come on bees, let's go over here now. Yeah. I love how laconic you are about not everyday things. It's like, oh yeah, moved some bees. Everyone else was moving bees, so I moved some bees as well. Yeah. What? No big deal.
Yeah.
Not unusual.
Okay, I'm gonna move on because I don't know what the fuck to do with you as a person and as my friend.
There you go.
Right, so we're on to the main. What?
No painting.
No painting. Sad face.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right. Yeah. Is
it a Zimbabwean thing? Maybe. I don't know. If I'm honest.
No,
Nathan buzzing after.
Little beats.
Dan asked a question. Go on, Dan, again.
Oh no, I was asking from the chat. They want to know, were you buzzing after?
Yeah, I was. Yeah, it's quite cool because they make noise inside their hive. Yeah, it's cool.
I would watch that YouTube channel for hours. I want you to
Yeah.
know that. For fucking hours.
Yeah.
Right, so... like hours of that. So we're talking now, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to move on 56 minutes in. Just smashed it, 50 minutes in. To the main subject of the show today, which is our new thing where we do archetypes. And we talk about archetypes. So there is... Now, I'm going to put this into some context because this is super important. We're going to look at a single list pretty much, although we're going to look at a couple of variations. We're going to look at a single list for Ogre Mawtribes. This is pretty much your cookie cutter archetype Ogre Mawtribes list that you'll see at a competitive event. That does not mean there are not other builds. If you wanted to, you could play Underguts. Yeah, you could be Pask, and you could be running all sorts of like Grots and Gretchen and be having a great time. Yeah, if you wanted to be like, there's a Stuart McCowan build. Yeah, like big shout out to Iron Gutsman, because only Iron Gutsman can do the Iron Gutsman build. But there is an Iron Guts build, but only one person in the world plays it and has played it well. And as of today, this is super important, or as of the weekend, there is someone with a triple Thundertusk list that went 4-1, but that was in Australia, so who knows if that means anything.
It's our meta is absurd down there.
Yeah, Dan. Why, Dan? As an Aussie, can you answer why? Like, what is it?
Limited access to oxygen and far too much sunlight. That's the only thing I like down there. We kind of are the butt of the world. Like, I mean, if you think about the world as a person, we're on the lower back area. So there's probably a lot of methane. I know we do a lot of mining there. So I'm assuming that there's just something in the water and that has kind of led to us developing these weird ways of looking at the world. But yeah, that's all I can assume. It's like, you know, those studies they did like on rat colonies where they lock away just a bunch of rats for a long time and then they go insane. That's probably what my beautiful people are like.
Agreed. Truly mental. Can I just thank Jacob Berry for gifting a gift subscription in the chat? Also to Dr. Numian for subscribing, and Elko Reb. Dr. Numian says, "Hey guys, looking forward to the banter. While I miss playing with my war dollies, I miss giving everyone a hug most. Who gives the best hugs? I think Nathan." Agreed. But they're also the most furry. Marty 8 Hoy, Spleen Stabber, thank you so much. He keeps subscribing for Dan's rent, which is lovely. So thanks very much.
Rent or rant? Like, do you want me to stay like living in a house, or do you like it when I get upset by things?
I'm not sure. Grubby says, "Hey folks, still has just subscribed." Says, "Hey folks, still not played more than twice on the same day this edition." Big shout out to Heywo in the chat. The King Big is in the chat for the Ogre Mawtribes, so like that is exciting. And if you guys haven't yet, you should check out Heywo's YouTube and his Twitch. Lovely fellow who loves the game and has got loads of cool things to say about it. Is my the official Big. Right, so while there are loads of builds, pretty much I'm not going to pick an arbitrary percentage number, but a lot of the builds are pretty much a Yobad. They're in either Bloodgullet or Thunder or Boulderhead. Sorry, they've got a Frostlord and Stonehorn. They got some Mournfang, and they got some Raiders. So we're gonna talk about this, or some Stonehorn, but we're gonna talk about these slowly. I'm just gonna take a small break right now because I stayed too hydrated. And Nathan, do you want to kick us off for a moment? Can you give us like your general overview of how you think ogres play and like what your thoughts are? I'll be back in a moment.
Sure. Are you going to take the mic so we can hear you piddle? So obviously, them ogres are fairly beefy fellas, but I think obviously they've been, when they were lumped back together, becoming the Mawtribes, where you had the Beast Claw and the ogres coming back together. I think that was probably a good thing for them.
It's interesting though, right? Like, they've come back together, but a lot of the time you still see lists that either swing one way or the other. Like they're together in name only, but even like I play probably more the ogre side of things, right? Like my army is mostly ogres with like a Mournfang unit in it, and even then, even in the book, like they're really specific. There are some that are really good for the Beast Claw side of things and some that are really good for the Ogre side of things, like in the Subfactions and formations and stuff. But there aren't any that really mix it. And I found that really disappointing, to be honest. Like it's probably the only thing that I miss is every formation is either it's a Warband and it's Stonehorns, or it's Thunder Tusks and it's Mournfang Riders and that's that. Or it's like it's a Butcher and it's a Tyrant and it's this. Like their book still feels split down the middle for me.
So that's the battalions that force you down that route, isn't it? Okay, yeah, but you quite often will see, like the Warband lists, you'll often see them with basically they're Beast Claw, aren't they? But then they lob in a Butcher. So because the magic still works for both sides, the buffs work on keyword Ogre, which is good because even the Beast Claw have got that. I mean, there's some of the critters don't have it. I would have thought like the Yetis and the Gorges and stuff, but at least the Ogre keyword is fairly prevalent across the army, isn't it? So you can still use the buff spells, and obviously one of the key things is the battle trait where they have the hungry and the feeding thing, which is a pretty simple battle trait, but it's really effective. I like it a lot.
Super effective.
Yeah, it's proper good. So
should we talk about those in detail for a moment? Should
we jump onto the battle trait while we mentioned it? Or
yeah, I think so. Let's hit that up straight away for you guys at home. So Nath, do you want to start us off?
Sure. So it's called Ravenous Brutes, and an ogre exists in one of two states. It's either ravenous with hunger, or it's stuffing its mouth with food.
Perfect.
So there you go. If an ogre unit is more than 3 from enemy units, it's hungry. And if it's within 3 of enemy units, it's eating. So you add 2 to the movement characteristic of a unit that is hungry, and you add 2 to the bravery of a unit that is eating. So nice and simple, but very effective, like I said.
I'd say, like, obviously the first thing when we look at the war scrolls in a minute, first thing to think is that effectively every unit we look at is going to be +2 move, unless it's in a fight. But like, that's perfect.
Then you don't need to be +2 move. Yeah,
you don't need to be +2 move. Like in the chat, people are saying, "Percussive Scruff, thank you for resubscribing, by the way," saying that it's a really themey rule, and I agree. I think it's an excellent rule and really, really useful. Or maybe it's really useful on the units that we're going to look at. I think it's useful across the whole board, really, for this army. I think it is really, really good. But yeah, one of the other battle traits, Trampling Charge, is after an Ogre or Rhinox unit makes a charge move, you hit one enemy unit within an inch of that unit and roll a number of dice equal to the unmodified charge roll. And then you add 2 to each roll if the Ogre unit made charge move has 8 or more models or is a monster, so it's a 4-up. And on a 6-up, the enemy suffers a mortal wound. So you just got regular rubbish dudes. You roll an 8-inch charge, you roll 8 dice, 6-ups for a mortal wound. If you got a monster, though, and you roll a big 10-inch charge, roll 10 dice, you could do 5 mortal wounds in that situation. So your average is a 7-inch charge, and therefore you're going to do 3 to 4 mortal wounds, which is pretty good, like for free.
Yeah. It's like you got into combat, so now you get to do some stuff before you even do anything else. The strong thing with that too is in hitting monsters that are on their full profile. It's really easy to knock them down a profile with the impact, like from like a profile tier, which means that suddenly, like say you, I don't know, reduce their ability to hit you and you've got -1 to hit on a unit or something like that. Suddenly you don't need to pile in with that unit first. And when you combine that with Black Clatterhorn, you can absolutely 86 the ability of a tiered model before they get to fight, and then you don't need to fight with that unit first. It's a great 1-2 punch.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, knocking down monster. Go on, Nath, after you.
Sorry, yeah, I was also going to say, I mean, it also synergizes a little bit with the command ability on the Frostlord. That bellowing voice. When you look at the command ability, because it gives all units within 12 inches the reroll charge roll. So it means, if you really want to, if you're really greedy for that big charge roll, then you can re-roll it. It doesn't have to be a failed charge roll. So yeah, if you're 3 away and you roll your charge and you're within the bubble and you've only rolled a 4, well then sod it. You may as well go bigger. So roll again.
Go bigger and more sexier. Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So the mortal wounds on the charge, the plus move. So these, when we look at the war scrolls in a minute, those are the things to keep in mind. So these are just the battle traits, and you got might makes right. So basically, ogre models count as 2 models, and an ogre monster count as 10. That's another great rule, like really useful when you get into it, especially with how this list or the list. I'm going to talk about the list next. How the list generally plays, and again, there are other ogre lists, and I'm sure there are other people who do well with other ogre lists. But this is pretty much predominantly the cookie-cutter version of an ogre list. And obviously it's making use of that. So I'll read the list out really quickly, and then we'll deep dive some of the stuff. So big shout out to Pask. So you guys can see on the screen now. I'll show you the list, and I'll put a link to the list in the chat as well. So this is one of Pask's lists that he used at some event. I think it's Hammer Time 5. But they can change around. Sometimes you've got more Mournfang, sometimes you've got less, sometimes you've got double Stonehorn Beast Riders, sometimes you've got less, but this is roughly what it is. So this is a Blood Gullet, so either Blood Gullet or Boulderhead. We'll talk about those two in a moment. A Frostlord on Frostlord on Stonehorn, who's the general. A Huskard on Stonehorn. A Butcher. Two fours of Mournfang. Another Mournfang, and then the Stonehorn Beast Riders, and then the Yulbad Battalion. So we're going to basically break down most of this stuff because pretty much everything that you see here, the artifact, which is Skull Shards of Dragar, the mount trait, which is Metal Cruncher, the other mount trait, which is Black Clatterhorn, you pretty much will see these all the time. Sometimes it's double Frostlord on Stonehorn. Sometimes it's that instead of the Frostlord and a Huskard. Sometimes it's 1 Frostlord and 3 Stonehorn Beast Riders. But it's pretty much all of this stuff. The important point is you rarely see Gluttons, you never see Man Crushers. Not Man Crushers, sorry, Man Eaters.
Man Eaters.
Lead Belchers. There are lists that do it. Again, you can play those things. We're not saying they're terrible. I'm just saying if you're playing an ogre army, more than likely, this is what you're going to play against. And so for you to be, this is the whole point of the show. These shows that we're going to do. So if you were playing against one tomorrow, or if you more importantly wanted to run one, it's kind of a deep dive of these lists that are played a lot competitively. Doesn't mean everything else is rubbish. It just means that they don't feature particularly. That's what I'm trying to get at. Because, some of them are rubbish.
No, you were being positive. Stop there.
Okay.
Tell us
Stop there.
done
The Viper kills the mountain. Turn off the episode. Let's keep going.
Okay, so that's the list. That's the list. So like we said, so let's look at I think the best thing to look is the War Scrolls first, and then talk about all the upgrades that we see later generally, if you guys are cool with that. And let's talk about the Frostlord on Stonehorn, because this is a chunky boy. So he's got 13 wounds with a 3-up save. Now, base move 12 inches, but really, that's base move 14 inches.
14.
Straight off the bat, which is very fast, because you either start 18 or 24 inches apart, which means he's either going to need a 10 or a 6-inch charge. Those are the kind of which is pretty nice. I'm not going to lie to you. When he's got that 18-inch deployment, he just deploys on the line. Super tough. Does anyone want to take me through the War Scroll?
You beauty, got it right here. So this big boy, unlike a lot of other people, he's packing a Frost Spear, 2-inch range, 4 attacks, 3s and 3s, rend 1, and a hefty damage of 3. Then he also has punches and kicks, which for any Mawtribe player is the saddest part of attacking with any model, because a dude that hits you with his cannon or a dude that bites you with his chompy teeth is better than them just punching you with those meat fist slabs of hands. Anyway, punches and kicks, 3 attacks, 3s and 3s, no rend, damage 1. They never do anything. They will disappoint you every single time, and every now and then you're like, hey, I kicked something, and it's sad. But then the stuff that we want. So we've got the rock hard horns, which start at 6, and as it deteriorates, go down to 2. They're 4s and 3s, rend 2, damage 3, which is why you often see an upgrade on this little beastie that we'll get to. And then the crushing hooves, which are D6 attacks, 3s, and then the to wound goes from 2 to 4, depending on how damaged it is. Rend 1, damage D3. So he's a beast when it comes to what it puts out.
Before we talk about anything else, that's big output, big, strong, beefy. Like this is a full bolognese of output. I don't know if bolognese is like a
No, I'll allow it. Yeah.
Thank you. I was chicken and bacon pie. Like it's a lot is what I'm trying to
full
say.
mayonnaise in your case.
It's a Noah's Ark of animal proteins. This bloke's war scroll. Yeah.
Let's just do some pie in the sky sort of like before we do any upgrades. Let's do some pie in the sky. Everything hits some wounds, right? Frost Spear, is already given us 12 damage. Yeah, the rock hard hoofs and claws 24 damage. Yeah. Like, oh wait, have I done the math? No, 18 damage. Sorry. That's
18 for his rock hard abs.
Thank you.
Yeah. Which is often the kind of damage that rock hard abs can do to a person.
Yeah.
So he's what, 12 and 18. So we're at 30 so far.
Yeah, and Kids with Six has done all the maths for us, but basically 45 wounds total possible damage.
And remember, 3 of those wounds are from the punches and kicks.
Important.
Yeah.
Now, I will point out that rock hard horns, like if you're like, how do I deal with stone horns? Minus to hit is a good start for this army. We'll get onto the fact that they can sort that out, but like minus to hit is a solid debuff in this situation. But yeah, sorry, Dan, please continue. Please continue, Angel. Have we discussed that it's 13 wounds with a 3-up save yet?
That's where I was going next. I was like, he's 13 wounds with a 3-up save, and importantly, he's got a stone skeleton. Now, I know what you're thinking. Dan, skeletons are usually made out of bone, or it's an exoskeleton and it's some kind of chitin. But no, his skeleton is stone, and what that means is that he's thick. Like, he just real thick when it comes down to it. And which means he's got a 5-up DPR.
Yep.
And when you combine that 13 wounds, 3-up save, 5-up DPR with the pretty generous amount of healing that you can get out turn to turn with the Mawtribes, he's a very hard to confidently lower his tier unless you hit it with enough to kind of take it out in a turn or two.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things. Like, so when you see these guys play on the tabletop, you're gonna see them played like missiles. Yeah, sometimes they're gonna just generally be threats that they're like we're gonna charge at some point. It's hard to do chip damage to them with a 3-up and 5-up anyway. Like that 3-up's lovely. A Mystic Shield is gonna be super mint. That reroll 1s to save. Like if you could ever get pluses to save on these, oh dear God, it's all I could think. They would be like super survivable.
And can we talk about all of the pricks that used to give them ethereal amulet for tournament play as well? You can go right off and insert your arm all the way up to the elbow inside of the small soundproof compartment that you're all currently sitting on. You bunch of dicks.
Yeah, but the point Kids with Sids is making in the chat here, like, we'll quickly talk. Earth-Shattering Charge, add 1 to the damage inflicted by this model's rock-hard horns and crushing hooves if they made a charge. So that takes the rock-hard horns up to damage 4 and the punches and kicks up to damage 2. So that's just massive output there. And like, so this is these come in at 400 points. 400 points for a Frostlord on Stonehorn of pure energy. And this is the point, it's a really well done war scroll because it's just this monstrous beat stick. Like when you see other monsters, you're like, you wrote the Frostlord on Stonehorn, understand you know how to write output. Like I know you know, why isn't this in other places, right? Like they're terrifying and it's so much. Sorry, Dan, you continue. There's a command ability as well.
And last but not least, the command ability that Nathan was chatting about before is Bellowing Voice. With a booming voice, the Frostlord signals the hunt, which basically means re-roll your charges, and everyone within 12 inches of him, wholly within 12. All Beastclaw Raider units can re-roll their charges, not just failed. The sad thing, which we kind of alluded to while you were taking your brief post-hydration break, Rob, is that the book is unfortunately split very clearly down the middle between Beastclaw Raiders and Mawtribes. And that's a real shame because almost all of the Beastclaw Raiders, they only buff each other and themselves. Almost all of the Mawtribes only buff each other and themselves, and never the two shall meet. And even in most of the Subfactions, they are mostly good for whichever one they are kind of like designed around. There aren't many there are no cross-faction abilities. They're just flat out. And it's not like, so you could have a Frostlord on Stonehorn who's running along commanding the charge, but all of the gluttons are on foot are like, bugger this guy, who does he think he is? And it's like, I'm you, but I ride a gigantic death beast. And he's like, I didn't vote for you. So it's a bit of a shame. It's a bit of a shame there. And I think I've sung the praises of this book a lot, and I genuinely think it's one of my favorite written books. I think it's fantastic. But it is definitely a shame in that small capacity for me.
So I'd say, like, so what's interesting about doing this bit? Oh, it doesn't matter. We're only focused, like, it's really nice, actually. This is a nice way of breaking down the tournament list that we see quite often for me to not have to talk about the stuff that I don't think is particularly good, which is significant parts of the book. So, yeah, Dan, right now, only looking at this list in isolation, agreed. Because you got this monstrous beat stick, right, in the Frostlord and Stonehorn. And then I guess that's time, really, to talk about some of the upgrades that you can put onto these different models. So if you go into Blood Gullet, or if you play as Boulderhead, you get a couple of like different upgrades depending on which one you play as. So I'm just gonna read through these. So Blood Gullet, if you've got a Butcher, they can cast an extra spell, which is fine. Their command ability is you pick one friendly Butcher until the end of that phase. You can reroll wound rolls made by Blood Gullet Gluttons. So that doesn't really affect us either. So that's not why we see Blood Gullet. The command trait, though, nice drop of the red stuff. Friendly
good
units
command trait.
This is why we quite often see a Blood Gullet Stonehorn list. Is friendly units that start a pile-in move wholly within 12 inches of this general can move an extra 3 inches when they pile in. And obviously the general is in range of itself. So if the general just runs off with another Stonehorn or just on his own, he's now got a 6-inch pile-in. You still have to be within 3. It's not the good 6-inch pile-in, but it is a 6-inch pile-in. And that's really significant because you can push him into some real solid places. And then finally, the Artifact of Power, another great reason. Because really, this is where you're working backwards, which is a bit different to the Tzeentch stuff that we saw last time. Last time we really looked at the Change Host and the two kind of sub-factions, and we were like, we want to put stuff into those. This is kind of the opposite, where you've got the Stonehorn, and you want to make the best out of that Stonehorn. That's kind of how this book works, or at least how it works at the moment at the points values it's at. And the Artifact of Power, pick one of the barrier's melee weapons at the end of the combat phase. If any wounds are inflicted by that weapon in that phase that were allocated to any model and not negated, it can heal D3. And this obviously works super well, Nathan, with the Morpot, right?
Yeah. So the Morpot has also got a heal ability on it as well. But I was just going to point out that Blood Gullet command trait, the 6-inch, the extra 3-inch. That's really good with these things because they've got the impact hits, so they can go into depleted units, smash them, and then pile in because they have made the charge. Still pile in past, and then the smashed up little screen, especially if you multi-charged with a few, like the list that you've got there has got the 3 Stonehorns, so you potentially could wipe out a 10-man screen, but then the whole unit can then pile in 6 inches, and they've got the 2-inch weapons as well, so that the screen's really got to be pushed far forward, especially if you've only got 10-man screens. So
it's super useful.
Yeah.
And I think also the fact that you can heal another D3 onto this unit that's already tough to kill is super good. Yeah, like I'm all in. I think that command trait's brilliant. Like maybe the only weakness is that obviously it relies on that general, but that general is like just a missile that you're sending off.
It's pretty tough, isn't he? I mean, really, when you're looking at these stats, you've just if you're playing against them, you really want to be getting a drop on them. You want to be charging them because they get significant bonuses on the charge. So if you can pin them in place, you've got a much better chance, I think, playing against them.
Playing them, I always find your opponent knows about their output and their damage, and they're just imposing, like in general, both Mournfang and Stonehorns. So your opponent doesn't want to charge them because they're like, oh, his output's so incredible even when he doesn't charge. I don't want to give them an extra turn of combat. Where it's like, well, actually, like then at least if your unit hangs around, I'm tied up in combat, killing whatever you fed me for another turn. You're way better off feeding the Stonehorn and tying it up in your opponent's turn than you are letting it go and decide what it wants to hit, especially with that 6-inch pile-in. The other thing that's awesome about it is that a lot of those Mournfang have big, awkward base sizes. So having an extra 3 inches to make sure you get in all of the combat, all of the hate in there, it's massive. It's such a huge difference.
Yeah. So that's Blood Gullet, right? So really, it's the 6-inch pile-in from Blood Gullet, and it's the heal D3. This is really what Blood Gullet's given us, as well as like a 2-cast wizard. So that's what Blood Gullet gets us. The other version that we see,
the 2-cast wizard also combines nicely with your Maw Pot, because that obviously gives you the +1 to casting and unbinding, as well as the 36-inch. If you do empty your Maw Pot, basically, you get a 36-inch heal, D3 heal, which is great on Stonehorns, obviously, because every wound is gold, isn't it? So,
yeah. There's an extra wound in every 3 that you heal, right, because of the DPR. Yeah. So the other version that we see, so normally you see the flip-flop, like Dan's decision to, Nathan, I don't know, you missed this bit, he bought 50 new elves as of yesterday.
Wasn't it
60 new elves? 60 new elves.
Yeah,
50.
He's not...
Two boxes of Shadow Warriors, 2 boxes of Eternal Guard, 1 box of Phoenix, 2 Pentient Engines, a box of Skulls, 3 boxes of Graveguard, and some Warcry dudes. But it's all because I'm going to be using the Graveguard to turn them into dead elves. This is to murder them. I think
Nathan will be disappointed. I think we should I just want to bring it up. Yeah.
You haven't even got your second elf book yet, have you? Or your third one?
I'm getting a beer.
It's so weird. Like, elf boys are like, I can't believe you give me more books, and everyone else is like, do you know what? I'll take more books. All right. So the other subfaction we normally see is Boulderhead, right? So Boulderhead gives you Fearsome Breed. You add 1 to the wounds characteristic of friendly Boulderhead monsters. Already brilliant, obviously. In addition, each Boulderhead hero on a Stonehorn or Boulderhead hero on a Thundertusk can take an additional mount trait instead. Can be given a mount trait, right? So you can take an additional mount trait on your heroes. That's obviously brilliant. There's also Deadly Hail, which is add 1 to the prayer rolls for Pulverizing Hailstorm when the Boulderhead Priest is chanting that prayer. So we can skip that. And then he's got the command ability, which is Dig Deep Your Heels. Dig Deep Your Heels. You can use this command ability at the start of any phase. And if you do so, you pick a friendly Boulderhead hero that has a mount until the end of that phase. Use the top row on that unit's damage table, which is amazing. To just take the Stonehorn straight back up to, like, even if he's on his very last wound, like, he now is fighting at his top bracket and just doing loads of output. So great command ability. Command trait is Lord of the Beasts. Friendly Boulderhead monsters wholly within 12 of the general at the start of the movement phase can move an extra inch. So now, instead of going 14 inches, they're going 15 inches. Yeah, they're super fast. And then Artifact of Power is the Brand of the Sword. If the bearer has a mount, add 1 to hit rolls for attacks made by that mount's melee weapons, which makes those
awesome.
So good. That 4 to hit on those horns goes to a 3 to hit, and even really good.
And then, with Black Clatterhorn, 3s to 2s.
Yes, 3s to 2s. So good.
And those fists go 3s to 2s, right?
Yeah, and that's with Blood Gullet, that's what we missed. Is obviously people would think to put the Splatter Cleaver on the Frost Spear that the Frost Lord has. 3s and 3s, rend 1 or 2, damage 3. However, what you don't think is put the Splatter Cleaver on the punches and kicks, 3s and 4s or whatever, no rend, damage 1, just to add insult to injury the 1 time per game it actually works. Don't do that.
Oh, the fucking internet. Oh, heartbreak. The internet broke. You guys are still here, right?
Yeah.
Oh, wait. It might not have broken forever.
I look like yeah, let's just have a cheeky beer. Yeah, no, we're good.
Okay. Oh, no, I think it has crashed. Oh,
No,
heartbreak.
we're still live.
No, we're good.
Us.
I'm watching myself drink.
Rob doesn't know how the internet works today, look.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks. Appreciate you. All right, that's good, because otherwise chopping the videos together is a nightmare. Such a dream. Anyway, okay, so then the two sub-factions we've talked about, yeah, that's sweet. We're going to talk about mount traits in a minute. Yeah, that's important. But I think one of the things to touch on is the battalion, right? Which is the Yulbad. So this is super important. Yeah. You almost always see this battalion, always. Really, the battalion is the kind of the key point of the army. Key focus here is it drops the army down pretty low. It's a melee army that can move very aggressively into like a very strong alpha fight. Doesn't have like any range threats really. So like having that low drop and making those decisions and being allowed to make those decisions, I think is really important. So an Yulbad is 140 points. It's got a Huskard on Stonehorn, 1 to 3 Stonehorn Beast Riders, and 2 to 4 Mournfang Pack Hunters. Right? So, and it's got the ability, which is, and don't forget the Mournfang can be battle line, so that's super important. And the ability is Crush, Mangle, Tenderize. If the unmodified hit roll for an attack made by a melee weapon used by the model from this battalion is a 6, it inflicts a mortal wound in addition. So you're just stacking more damage on the Huskard on Stonehorn, the Stonehorn Beast Riders, which we'll talk about in a minute, and the Mournfang as well. Mournfang is particularly good, but I would say one of the key features, extra artifact, extra mount trait, and also a CP, which is neither here nor there, and also that low drop. I think these are the crucial elements for why you often see the Yulbad. Like, and again, go on, Dan.
I actually just wanted to jump in and say, having played this, managing your CP is actually big. So having that extra CP is really, really good for two little elements. First is you can't afford to fail a charge, which means that you're generally either using the Frost Lord's command ability, or you're saving it to reroll failed charges. Or the flip side is to use it to reroll ones to hit in combat. Because only a handful of units naturally generate the reroll ones to hit. And when your output is as high as it is, there are a lot of times where you go into something and you need to make sure that you can go into something else afterwards. So I'm just going to say CP is you often are scraping the bottom of the barrel to use it right when you need it, and it's real important in these for these lists. When you've got such a small kit with which to work, you can't afford for any of it not to.
Of course. So let's talk about mount traits. So this is super important as well.
Yes.
We got Black Clatterhorn and Metal Cruncher, kind of the key points to talk about here. So Black Clatterhorn is add 1 to hit rolls for attacks made by these models' rock hard horns. So +1 to hit on those rock hard horns, which, as we talked about in the chat, having that mount trait so that you have that +1 on one Stonehorn and then the Brand of the Svard on another, so you get +1 to hit in 2 different places as opposed to double +1 to hit, feels like the right decision to kind of split it across. But like, depends on what you're up against, really. So +1 to hit on the rock hard horns. Don't forget those damage 3 or damage 4 on the charge attacks. And then Metal Cruncher at the start of the combat phase. Pick one enemy war machine or one enemy unit with a save characteristic of 4+, 3+ or 2+ that is within 3 inches of this model. The enemy unit immediately suffers D6 mortal wounds. So it just, boom, D6 mortal wounds, which is just incredible. Like you said, Dan, I think one of the things about this is you throw in a Metal Cruncher Stonehorn into a monster, impact hits, so there's mortal wounds on the charge, plus the Metal Cruncher, you could be looking at like your monster half dead before it even gets to fight, even if it would, and probably the Stonehorn's going to kick its teeth in. So it's just so good. Nathan, you got any thoughts on it?
Yeah, I mean, again, I think that those two mount traits are the ones you're going to see all the time. So it's another, I was going to say another plus to the boulder head thing, but then I assume you get an extra mount trait for each of your battalions anyway. And if you're only taking the 2 hero,
Oh no!
maybe
One more time,
it's
Nathan.
not. Maybe it's yeah. It's another thing. If you're not going to take the battalion, then but it's an.
Oh, he slid back. He's turned back into undergargants, I think. Like he's turned back into pants.
We've got you, Nate. We believe in you.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I personally, my reason for putting loving Metal Cruncher on a Stonehorn is in part exactly what we were just saying, Rob. You take them down a couple of tiers before you even fight if you go into a monster. But the amount of times your opponent throws 10 little 10-man units in front of you as a screen, right? And then you go in with your charge and you do, let's say you're averaging 7, so you're doing 4 mortal wounds there. So you're doing another 3 to 4, so 7 to 8 mortal wounds on average with a standard charge from a Stonehorn with Metal Cruncher before you choose who to pile in with. Because the impact happens when you hit, and Metal Cruncher happens at the start of the combat phase. So then what you can do is, and this is why I love it in Blood Gullet, with your big 6-inch pile-in, you can then pile in around the screen with his big old base to get into whatever you needed behind there. And it is such a clutch move.
And that's when he's just charged on his own, right, Dan?
Yeah, that's when he's just by himself.
Yeah,
he's standing there being like, don't worry, boys, I got this.
Yeah, and that's not if you haven't sent in an accompanying Stonehorn, a Stonehorn Beast Rider, or even a Mournfang pack, done a bunch more mortal wounds on the hit, giving yourself even more space. It's really interesting. A couple of points I thought I'd like to raise. James, jump you in on this one. Isn't it hilarious how good a Frostlord and Stonehorn is versus how rubbish a Bloodthirster is?
Just the best.
Hot take.
But I think we talk about this quite often. Or I talk about this quite often. And I think the problem is, you see a Stonehorn and you're like, it's kind of like a woolly mammoth. It's got giant tusks. It's got a little fat guy on the back. He's hungry. He's got a big spear. What does he want? He wants some food. He wants to destroy everything in his path. Great. Like his story. I like the fact he's hungry. I've been hungry. I know what that feels like. I haven't rode a woolly mammoth, but I imagine it's great.
Yeah,
I'm on board. I love his narrative. And then I see a Bloodthirster, and I'm like, what do you want? And he's like, blood and skulls. I'm like, whose blood? Anyone's. I'm like, oh, okay. Whose skulls? Anyone's. And I'm like, oh, that's boring.
So boring. So boring.
And I think that's a problem with Bloodthirsters. They're like, what do I want? Blood and skulls. What have I wanted for the last 40 years of Games Workshop? Blood and skulls. Oh, I can't be bothered. It's anyone's. They know there's a Stonehorn somewhere killing everything. They're like, I'll just follow him. I don't have to hit anyone anymore.
So, Nathan, another question. So, to throw over to you, how do you feel about the Frostlord on Stonehorn's output versus a 460 from Maw Crusher? Frostlord and Stonehorn. I'm not trying to. I'm saying that there's a 60-point difference. Do you think the Maw Crusher brings something to the army that the Frostlord and Stonehorn does, or just the Frostlord and Stonehorn is just a beat stick better? That's all I'm asking.
No, I would say the output's similar. I mean, the dude on the top, I would think the Orc War Boss is actually potentially more damage output, or a very similar damage output. Depends on how far into the game it's gone. And then the Maw Crusher, with its big fists, they're Ren 2, and they're also damage 2 or 3. So, there's a lot of damage coming out of the Maw Crusher as well. So I would say damage-wise, they're fairly similar. And the nice thing about the Maw Crusher is obviously it can fly. One of the things that a big cow animal can't with its stone skeleton, just wanders around. I mean, obviously the Stonehorn having the 5-up DPR is pretty sweet. The Maw Crusher, they both got the 3-up save, but yeah, I think the fly keyword is proper nice,
pretty clutch. Yeah. Also, go on, Dan.
I was going to say, and the possibility for the Maw Crusher to bounce from unit to unit if its impact hits kill it. I know that very rarely happens, but it does on occasion, and that's just hilarious.
There's also Mighty Destroyers, right? So double move. So you got that effective 24-inch potential movement, which is pretty big. Smashing and bashing as well. So I think there's a good conversation. So maybe that 60-point difference is justified. But I just thought it would be fun to talk about. So that's pretty much everything to talk about when it comes to the actual stone horns. That we could talk about. We've talked about the Splatterkeever. We haven't talked about the shards, skull shards of Dragar. I'm not good at saying that. Dan,
Do it again.
Do
it again.
I'm not doing it again. You can fuck off.
I love it's one of those ones that everyone's really confident at the start of. Like the skull shards of which is where it's the opposite of the KO. See, to this day, I still mispronounce KO. So really unconfident in the first word. I'm like, overlords. The overlords is what they are. I love it. It's my favorite part of naming things in this hobby. I would always be like, no one will ever pronounce the back part. They'll always just go with the first. The skull shards. Ooh, baby. Where did we go? Because I want to find the flavor text for them as well. Just if we're going to do it, we may as well commit to doing it right. Correct?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
The skull shards of Drararara.
Mm-hmm.
Strange magic clings to the shattered skull of this once powerful mage. Oh, that was his name. Oh, that poor bloke.
Dragar.
Can you imagine going through your entire life and everyone's just like, oh, hey, you... Because they're not confident about trying to pronounce your name. Anyway, once per battle, the bearer can attempt to unbind one spell in the enemy hero phase as if they were a wizard. If they do so, that spell is automatically unbound. Do not roll 2d6. So basically, you've got some old mage's noggin. He's passed away, but there's still a little bit of life left in him. And you just smash his earthly remains to pieces to stop someone doing what he loved to do in life.
Mm-hmm.
And that's pretty much the happy place.
So the other quick item to talk about is the Alvagar rune tokens. Once per battle at the start of the hero phase, the bearer can use this artifact. If they do so until the end of the next hero phase, you can reroll hit and wound rolls for attacks made by the bearer and reroll saves for attacks that target the bearer. Now, this works kind of okay on the Stonehorn because the rerolls to hit and to wound actually only apply to the Frostlord on top or the Huskard on top and not to the actual mount because that's how it works. However, the reroll saves obviously affects the whole model. So that 3-up rerollable save. So if you're sending him off as a missile, it's pretty good. It's pretty nice. Do you know what I mean? Like, send him off. You make it so he's got +1 to hit from the mount trait. That's not bad. That's not bad. Like, and it makes him a lot more survivable for the turn. Problem is that it's only once per battle, and it only affects till the next hero phase. I mean, it's quite nice. You can kind of keep him in, but you see that quite a few times as well. All right.
There's also the spell, because on that list that you've got there, because it's a blood gullet, the guy's got the extra spell, so he's gone with the molten entrails.
Yeah.
And that giving you, so it's cast on a 7, and it affects a Mawtribe monster, one monster within 18. And until your next hero phase, they get +1 damage to the melee weapons used by the monster's mount.
Which is nuts. So it takes him up to damage 5 on the Black Clatterhorns, right?
So when he's charging in, his big horns are damage 5, and his toes are damage D3 +2.
Which is nuts. Yeah. So much output. Yeah. So that was the spell that we see as well. So yeah, I was gonna come back to that, but yeah, 100%. That's the Go on, Dan. After you.
The one thing that we kind of skipped over, but it is important, is you would almost never put combat artifacts on your Huskard, because I realized we were talking about the Frostlord, right? And people are like, oh my gosh, Frostlord's a badass. But the Huskard doesn't have a weapon. He has a bird that he throws at you. He's like, here, have my freaking Budgerigar that does 1 mortal wound to 1 of 2 units, 1 picked by you, 1 picked by your opponent, and it's 50-50 whether the bird actually does what it's been trained its whole life to do, or whether it just goes like, bug here, I see some chips, I'm going for those. And then other than that, he only has punches and kicks. That's it.
Great weapon.
That's all he
has.
has.
Great weapon. You said you told us earlier how good punches and kicks was.
That's why I modeled. So I took the ogre off of my Stonehorn for my Huskard, and I modeled a grot. There's a Noblar riding it because I'm like a Noblar with 3 attacks doing damage 1. That's a hero Noblar. That is not a hero ogre. A hero ogre does not have 3 attacks doing what? My gluttons do more damage. How did this dickhead manage to tame a freaking Stonehorn? And then he like taps you, and somewhere there's a free guild greatsword being like, yes, your punches have the same strength as my sword. Bugger you, Huskards. Put your manners back in and get a real weapon. But that's
Wow.
also why. That's also why you'd never put a lot of these artifacts or anything like that on your Huskard, because your Huskard doesn't do anything. He is a delivery mechanism to point the Stonehorn in the right direction.
I'd say that's fair. All right, so we are going to talk about. I mean, there's not tons more to talk about with the difference between a Huskard and, of course, a Frostlord. Apart from the Huskard is going to be in your Yulbad, and that's going to be super important, having him in your Yulbad. So really key having him in there. Now, the Stonehorn Beast Riders are, like, again, 12-inch move, 14-inch base, boulder head 15 inches if they're near the general. So amazing little units that you can have in there. They've got the Harpoon Launcher and the Chain Trap in there, but they've got, most importantly, they've got the punches and kicks. They've got 6 of those, and they've still got those rock hard horn attacks. 6 attacks, 4s and 3s, Ren 2/3 damage, and they get that +1 damage if they charge as well. So they're just an amazing. Oh, I wasn't showing this the entire time. It's meant to be shown on the screen. Sorry. So again, just an amazing piece. One of the key points though with the Beast Riders is the Blood Vulture. So if you do have a Blood Vulture, if this model's armed with a Blood Vulture, at the start of your shooting phase, you can pick an enemy unit within 30 on a 2+, it suffers a mortal wound. It's pretty rough if there's a couple of Blood Vultures, because you can start to really feel threats on your characters at the back of the board, like from quite early. Yeah, it's just...
It's a dumb bird. It's a dumb bird.
But it works super well, man. Yeah, caca.
Yeah, but the amount of times I'm like, go bird, and it's just like, chips! And you're like, oh, it's every time, if a model's down to 1 wound, if it's down to 1 wound, there is a 100% chance that that bird is just going to piss off and go and like be like, oh, I thought I saw some seed. Like, that's what's going to happen.
Have you ever met a seagull?
I think I saw one once.
Okay, if you ever come to England, I'll take you somewhere with seagulls. We'll throw some chips on the ground and see what happens.
Yeah. It's
Or we'll just put them in your hands and we'll see what happens.
The difference between... So seagulls in Australia are very small, right? They're annoying, but they're small. And then I came to Canada, where their seagulls are migratory. These things are goddamn albatross. Like, it's like... they're like it's like a white cannonball with wings. The first time I saw one, I was like, oh my God, they're jacked. So yeah, we Canada has the most messed up geese, which I love, and the most messed up seagulls, which for some reason make me feel emasculated.
Wow. All right, so just another thing to point out with the Stonehorn Beast Riders. So they don't have the 3-up save, they've got that 4-up save on 12 wounds, but they've still got Stone Skeleton, right? So they've still got that 5-up DPR, right? So they're not the easiest thing to get rid of. Like, they're still super tough. And the fact that you can put you can put 1 to 3 in your Yulbad if you want to, I think is super useful. And they're 300 points for a huge beat stick. Like, they're like a good monster. They're like what other monsters wish they were. They were like, I wish you were something this good. So they're just...
And they count for 10 on an objective, which is gold. Proper gold.
They also do the mortal wounds on 4+s because they've got the monster keyword. Mm-hmm. So super important. You got that monster keyword in here. Like, really, really strong. 300 points is brilliant. Like, really, really brilliant. Like, and again, when we talk about this list rarely goes 5-0, but it very often goes 3-2-4-1 very consistently. This is a very consistently competent list that you could do like mid-table to top table kind of like work on. So like, and sometimes I think it's actually, we'll talk about DPS checks. We were talking about DPS checks today, actually. We were talking about the Mega Gargants. We were talking about Blight Kings. We're talking about DPS, which obviously we shouldn't talk about, so because damage per second doesn't make any sense. So damage per round, or damage per activation, or
prevention roll.
Yeah.
Depth of. Anyway, the other thing, which I think quite a few Ogre players forget as well, is the Grasp of the Everwinter, that other battle trait that they've got. and it
So
affects all of
good.
these monsters. And basically, you roll a dice for the Beast Claw Raider units, and if you roll less than the current battle round, they just do D3 mortal wounds to anything that's within 3 inches. So, yeah, that's just a nice little thing. I've seen a couple of battle reports where the guys have forgotten to roll it, and I think it's just a lovely little piece of chip damage that becomes really consistent as the game progresses. So really good for freeing up your dude.
I've been playing them for 2 years, and I haven't remembered that once.
Yeah.
I
was going to say, I bet loads of people forget it, but I think it's a really good thing if you remember.
Every time I finish the game, and I'm just like, yeah, cool, and I'll be thinking about it, and I'll be like, damn it! And then I'm like, okay, don't forget, I wrote it on my hand. I wrote it on my dice rolling hand, which is my right hand, with my left hand, so it was really messy. But I was like, I cannot pick up dice without seeing this, and I forgot it every round of the game.
I got a tip actually.
Do it on your Stonehorn's ass.
No, I disagree. I think
On
you
the
should
base.
start. I think you should start every single round with some ice cubes in your pocket, and then because think about it, they're cold initially. Then 30 minutes in, they'll start defrosting and making you lightweight. You're like, what the fuck is my Everwinter?
It's a blessing, and then you can bless
Every time.
Same as way that you blessed yourself.
Yeah.
Right. There was a request in the chat, Rob, because we spoke about using the Yulbad to lower your drops, but we didn't actually talk about using it for what it does.
Oh, we did. We did.
Oh,
but
we,
it's okay.
we actually spoke about the formation?
Yeah. I'll bring it back for you. No problem. So the Yulbad has got unmodified hit rolls of a 6, do a mortal wound in addition.
That's
so you get more output. It's really, really, really good. It's super useful. Now you don't get tons of attacks, but I mean, if just the Huskard has got has got a bunch of attacks. But let's talk about the key unit now. Actually, let's talk about the Mournfang.
Noblars.
Yeah. Wait, not Noblars. What the hell? Yeah,
but the Huskard also buffs. We didn't mention his command ability. He actually buffs the Mournfang unit if you got the command points to spare, which is I don't know. You probably use them all up on the charge one, maybe. I don't know. Toss up how close you are, if you're going to use it on the reroll charges, or if you're going to reroll ones to hit, or if you're going to burn it so they get the extra +1 damage on the tusks. I don't know which way they go.
So what's the specific command ability
again? So the Huskard one is, I'll just bring it up now so I can tell you. Oh, it's on the bloody.
I believe it's for the Mournfang, right? Like the battle. Yeah. Battle bits.
Yeah. So it's line breakers. If you use the command ability at the start of the combat phase, pick one friendly Mournfang pack unit that's made a charge move in the same turn and wholly within 12. When you use the Mournfang charge ability in that phase, you add 2 to the damage inflicted by the tusks instead of 1. So, I don't know. As a Mournfang player, what would you do? Because they have got the tusks of 4 attacks. So it changes them from damage 1 to damage 3. But they only hit on 4s, so I don't know.
Which the best you can get that down to if you have the bloke with the cauldron, who personally, like the butcher on foot and the cauldron butcher are the same points. I usually go the cauldron butcher because he's never casting his signature spell anyway, and the chance to get +1 to hit is always worthwhile for me. So you can get them down to 3s, and then they become 3s and 3s, rend 1, damage 3, with like a unit of 4 of them pumping out. What, 16 attacks? So that's if
they've charged. So just some clarity.
If they've
damage
charged,
1,
yeah.
Command ability gives them damage 2, and then on the charge, damage 3 from the Mournfang charge, which is significant, right? Because they come in packs of 2. So you got 8 attacks coming out of the unit, 4s, 3s, like you say, rend 1, and then initially damage 1, but then 2 with a spell and 3, or just flat 2. And that's still pretty nice in the output. I think what's important here is if you go for the... I mean, it depends how ballsy you're feeling. Like, so I feel like when you're playing inside a Yobad, it makes sense to go for the culling clubs on the Mournfang. So that's one of their melee weapons, because then you've got 3 attacks, so it's 6 attacks, so 7 attacks per model to try and proc some mortal wounds, with no rend or 2, and then 2 damage, or you just go all in 2 big attacks that do another 3 damage at rend 1, and try and chop them down. Interestingly, a Gargant hacker, this is super important, Gargant hacker, damage 3, Mega Gargants, damage 2.
Yeah, well, that's it's designed to bring down Gargants, specifically designed to eliminate them.
There we go. See, it's because they nicked the Gargant's weapons. It's the Gargant's hacker.
That's it. Actually, that's we found the reason. We found
as soon as the Gargants get their hackers back, then they'll be back to damage 3. But these fuckers have nicked them.
Rob, Nath missed the important information from the start of the show.
Oh yeah,
about the Mega Gargants.
Oh yeah,
that performed at SAGT.
Oh yeah, there's 2 events. VGT, SAGT this weekend. They went 3 armies went 4-1 of Mega Gargants, Nath.
Yeah, I saw your lunchtime show where you were doing the roundup of what Australians do with Warhammer, and it's very impressive.
It's very impressive.
They like the big fellas down there.
They do. They like all of Destruction did generally quite well, Nath, which is important.
Yeah. Very good. Yeah, I believe there was a Gits army with a Gargant in tow.
Went 3-2.
Yeah. Great.
I personally there's actually one of my favorite conversations is between people deciding what weapons Mournfang should have between the culling clubs and the hackers. For me, it depends on what army they're in. If you're in Blood Gullet, I go culling club or prey hacker because you've got more of a chance of getting into that one. But if I'm not in Blood, because they get that extra 3-inch pile-in, so 6-inch pile-in, you're getting in range. But the amount of times I've had 2 Mournfang in a 4-man unit that couldn't reach, but their Gargant hackers can reach over, and between them they might get an extra 3 or 6 damage that I wouldn't have got otherwise because my opponent had played well and blocked me in. It was worth its weight in gold. So I personally, that's where I find it interesting, because when you're only hitting on 4s, you're not getting many through with those Gargant hackers unless you've got some buffs on the unit.
It's true. That's a solid point. Now, they've got 6 wounds each, and they've got a 4-up save. So they cost 140 points for 2. So you've got 12 wounds, basically, with a 4-up save for that 140 points, which is just brilliant. They move 9. They're hungry, so they're moving 11 inches. So they're fast, and they can't quite keep up with Stonehorn, but they're potently fast, which is super useful. Mournfang Charge we've already talked about. You can add one to the damage inflicted by them, or you could go for having an Iron Fist and the culling clubs. And if the unmodified save roll for an attack might be a melee weapon that target's unit is armed with an Iron Fist, basically a 6. So if I make a 6 up to save, I basically reflect a mortal wound back. So some people take that they go for the Iron Fist as a way of putting that in. I'm not certain that that's really worth it to put in there, but I could see why. And I don't think that's why you would particularly take it. Banner Bearer adds +1 to the bravery. And obviously, don't forget, if you're in combat, that's another +2 bravery. So you can end up on bravery 9. So your little packs of 2 definitely are safe. And obviously, your pack of 4, fairly safe, ultimately. The Scaug gets a pistol, so you get a cheeky D3 shot. And then the Hornblower gets to add 1 to your charge rolls for this unit. Yeah, which is super good. But the unmodified, and they also get the impact hits that we talked about before, so they're going to do mortal wounds when they hit, which I think is Will Dockerall, thanks for resubscribing, big love. But that's it's a lot of output, right? So if you take a unit of 4, if we talk about a unit of 4 for a minute, it's 280 points, which is pretty cheap. It's a lot of wounds, right? It's 24 wounds on a 4-up save, so it's a chunky amount of wounds. And then for that unit of 4, which is a very difficult base size to move around, but you can end up... We'll just talk about the Tusk attacks for a minute. So you're going to end up with 16 Tusk attacks, and if you charge, they're doing damage too. Half of them hit on 4s, Maybe it's get pushed to 5, so it's going to be a little inconsistent. But you've got so many attacks from that unit that you can push through that you could do really well. Like minuses to hit hurt this whole army. There's no way around it. There's no way to ignore that conversation. But if you can not hit that unit with the Mournfang, if there's something out there that's not got -1 to hit, I'm pretty certain the Mournfang, 4 Mournfang are going to run through it pretty nicely. That's how I feel.
Nets obviously still being the most powerful weapons in the Age of Sigmar universe.
Forever.
Yeah.
Forever. Yeah. Yeah, so that Mournfang pack, and the reason that we're talking about them and the reason that they're in the list is because you talk about the Mournfang because you're talking about the Yobad. That's what you're talking about. So each one of those single Mournfang with their 7 attacks or their 6 attacks, they're rolling for 6s to hit as well. And those 6s to hit are going to cause an additional mortal wound. So there's a bunch of output there. And they're pretty cheap, really. Like, that's a nice amount of wounds. 24 wounds for 280 points is nice. Or even 12 wounds for 140 points. Like, they're nice, right?
The heavy cavalry, I think, the destruction heavy cavalry, because these and the Gargant they're great, aren't they? And they're fairly comparable.
Yeah.
These are probably not quite as much damage as a Gargant unit, but yeah, they're quite survivable. They're nice. So
yeah, agreed. You can also buff a Gorgrunters to high heaven, right? Like the damage 2 on the Gorgrunter, but more importantly, big War Gorgrunters with those 2s and 2s of pluses to hit, they go really reliable, I think. Which is quite nice.
Having access to +1 to hit would really be a bonus to this army. And if ever +1 to hit becomes a thing that you can get through a spell or maybe one of these Broken Realm books or something like that. I think armies like the Ogres and Gits and them, they'll be happy fellas.
Nathan is spot on.
Maybe one of the Underworlds warbands, maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah, if for any reason a generic way to get +1 to hit is going to be so useful on these Mournfang, 100% agree with that.
Nath, I'm going to grab another beer. Do you want one while I'm up?
I would love one.
Great, I'll get you. And James, you can suck it.
Right, that's me sending pictures of copying down in millions of things all week.
Now, there are some more things you can do with this. Like we talked about, you can have the Slaughtermaster and you can have the Butcher. Those are the other 2 things. Really, the most important thing that you're getting from the Slaughtermaster is when you go into your Blood Gruel and you look around and you try and get it out. Now, the problem is, and you're looking for Spine Marrow, which is a 3 to 4, right? You pick a friendly Ogre unit, wholly within 12 inches model, and you add 1 to hit rolls for attacks with that unit. Made by melee units until the start of the next hero phase. So you could include a Slaughtermaster in your army to hopefully get Spine Marrow and get those pluses to hit. I mean, everything else is pretty good in there as well, but really you don't generally you don't see that ultimately. That's not what you see. And that's it. I know that's like, oh no, we've only talked about like 3 War Scrolls, but that's how it works. Like, it's super simple, it's super on the nose, it's a battalion. Like, it's like, it can just be a 2-drop. So if we look at past Blood Gullet lists and just go over it again, he's got a Frost Lord on Stonehorn, who's got the nice drop of the red stuff with a big pile-in. He's got the Splatter Cleaver and the Black Clatterhorn, so this guy is like pimping. You got Huskguard on Stonehorn. He's in the battalion with the Skull Shards of Dragar, and he's also got Metal Cruncher, and then there's a Butcher with Molten Entrails, like Nathan said, for that plus damage, and he's also got the Rib Cracker spell. And then 2 lots of 4 Mournfang, which is just a lot of wounds. That's 48 wounds. 48 wounds on the board for 2 lots of 280 points. So for 560 points, those are going to hold some pretty decent objectives. And then there's another Stonehorn Beast Riders unit. So it's just all output all the time. And it's a 3-drop list. So it's a 3-drop list. So you're dropping super low, and you get to make the decision. Like, super nice. Yeah, really
I would also point out the spell that he hasn't got, which might be interesting if you take several of the Mournfang packs, is if you take the Blubbergut Stench as your extra spell.
Yep.
Because that turns your Mournfang into monsters when they do the charge. So they're doing their mortal wounds on a 4-up instead of a 6-up. So that's quite a nice little combination, especially if you're going with the extra units of Mournfang. So,
Mm.
yeah.
I think Lee Bromley's also pointed out in the chat is that this is like one of the cheapest armies you can put together. This is 3 Start collected boxes of like pure fun, like, and I honestly I'm a little bit disappointed with the rest of the book. I've got to be super clear, and I've got to be super clear that some people have done really well with other elements of the book, but so many people run this part of the book. So many, like Iron Guts and Iron Gutsman has done super well with this. Like Thunder Tusks somehow did great at the weekend. Triple Thunder Tusk, Nate. Like, went 4-1. They didn't even mess up, and it wasn't like a little bit. They did really well. And they were in what were they in? Right, which subfaction were they in? Because I've forgotten. Weren't they in? Oh, I can't remember which one they were in. Doesn't matter. Anyway, but the whole army works just pure aggro all the time.
That was the husk, the frost, the fucking snowball thing. Yeah. Torbad, I think it was.
Yeah, they were in Torbad. That was it. Yeah. But like that was an aberration, so we're not talking about that today. Thank you. Yeah, it was in Winterbite. So yeah, Torbad Winterbite. But that's an aberration, so maybe we'll do that on another show another time, but like we'll see if that ever repeats the results, and if it does, maybe it's just one genius with one list that no one knows how to play. But this is the general vibe. So Dan, I already know that you like this army and you've already played it. What are your thoughts having like gone through it again?
Going through it again, I almost always came down on the side of Blood Gullet. To be completely honest, and I'm starting to see the appeal of maybe trying out some Boulderhead. I prefer Blood Gullet. I think it's stronger. I think it means you only need 1 wizard because they've got 2 spells, and especially if you're picking a couple of buff piece spells, you don't need to worry about their distance from things. The only thing that the more I look at it, the more I think could be kind of useful is that 2 block of Mournfang. Are they necessary for the Yorbad, or is it 2 to 4 for the Yorbad?
It's 2 to 4.
Because the 2 to 4. Because the one thing that this list for me misses, and I've played this list a couple of times, or like a variation on it because I had to try it, is it's missing something you can reliably leave on your home objective to hold down the fort.
How many Noblar?
I would put like if you were to drop
70?
the 2 unit of Mournfang, you could put in either a unit of 20 Noblars just at the back of the board to hold down the fort next to the Butcher, next to the Cauldron, so you can make them immune to battle shock if you need to. Or even a unit of Ogre, like just Ogres for their beefiness, just to sit there and hold it, have a few more bodies on the objective and take it. It's, I think, the one area for me that I sometimes see it slide down. I could be very wrong. Someone could have already tried it and they're like, nope, it sucks, never do it. But for me, that's the only little bit that I don't like. I hate that this is the stronger side of the book because I prefer the Mawtribes. I like my ogres on foot and yelling at their cousins who are riding away. But I have both sides of it because it's a lot of fun. And there's a reason that this is kind of the primary list that we see. I think it just mostly gets undone by mortal wounds.
Okay. James, you got any thoughts? Like, having gone through this last week, we already got you. Oh, Nathan, you missed this. After last week's show, James has bought Kairos and loads of Tzeentch stuff.
Such a twat. What's the plan? Turn things into spawns?
Yeah. So all I thought the whole of this show is, I wonder how many wounds I'd have to do before I could reliably turn a Stonehorn into a spawn. Because imagine you've got 2 of those big boys on the table, and you're like, right, turn 1, missile him across the table. He kills a whole squad of pinks, and they're like, oh, I killed a whole squad of pinks. Look at him go. And then I'm like, cool. What are they? 3 shots each. 90 shots or whatever. 60 shots left into him. I'm like, cool. Mortal wound. Spawn. I'm just going to make a spawn of every model that people love. And maybe I might make one with a net. I might give them all nets.
I actually really fancy the Mawtribes play into Tzeentch. Tzeentch is fragile. Like, they play fragile as well. And listen, Pink Horrors is a womp to go through, but the output could be good out of a Tzeentch force. Don't get me wrong, but there's some good survivability that you can get inside the Stonehorn specifically, but generally the list as is. So I rate this, and also they don't want that level of pressure. Tzeentch are nah, leave me alone.
Yeah,
man.
but I mean,
give me some space to breathe.
We debated last week that you don't like the lister, right? And all I did was went through the Tzeentch book and was like, what turns things into spawn? Bye. You turn something into spawn? Bye. So, I didn't look at the rest of the rules. I just found the guys that used the spawn thing. And I was like, add you to my basket.
I'm not criticizing.
And I love that you've got Kairos
I have to
as well,
point
just
out
to know that you nail the one roll you need it to be. Because I love the eye contact you can make with your opponent and be like, whatever you roll, your Stonehorn's a spawn. Just unbroken eye contact. You can do anything you like right now. He's a spawn. So all you can do is make me use this ability. That's the best that you can do.
Also,
Otherwise, it's happening.
Actually, just as a question, because we've got Rob on the show who knows quite a bit about Warhammer, but we've got Nathan on the show now who knows everything about Warhammer.
Agreed.
So
no, I've got a fucking mistake I've made. I want to tell you about when you finished.
Okay, so if I play a Seraphon player, and I ignore everything else about the game, and I turn their croak into a spawn, so I'm doing nothing else, so it's gonna happen.
Yeah.
If that croak's on a Balewind, does my spawn get to hang out on the Balewind and just hit things?
Because it's a new model, and the model's immediately removed. But I understand your excitement. That would be amazing.
Making frog spawn is the answer.
Yeah,
and
frog's
going to be
frog
a pile of little eggs with black dots in the middle.
I'm going to have such a good time. I think that might be the rest of my year. I'm just going to make little spawns.
Just a pile of frog eggs. Yeah, so the blubber grub stench spell.
Yep.
I said it's for Rhinox units. I thought that Mournfang were Rhinoxes, but they're not.
They're not.
So you can't
Can you
use
even
it.
still buy Rhinox units?
Well,
Non-blast scrap launcher.
That's a
How
Rhinox.
very dare you ignore the most important unit in the army.
Yeah.
Sorry,
it's
so that's errata there on that one. Sorry, earlier.
Wow, it's very quick errata, Nath. The community is really only used to something that takes between 4 weeks and 18 months. So, you overshot considerably in that situation.
I'm impressed that we managed to get that errata for Nath despite the lack of data on in regards to using that spell. But there we go, we had it.
Yeah, and so there are other good units. Other good units in the book. Iron Guts. Hey, we're in the chat's talking about Iron Guts, and the math is that they can do even more damage that you can see than a Stonehorn. The problem is that distance. When we look about this, when we talk, that's why we talked about at the top of the show. Base movement 12. They're hungry. Movement 14. Boulder head. Movement 15. They are across the board. That's, I think, the most important point to talk about. Is that's why, in my opinion, the Mega Boss on War Crusher is a great piece all the time. I get super excited when I get to watch a game and do some stream coverage and I see the Mega Boss, because I'm like, that guy's going to bully the fuck out of the board. That's all he's going to do. He's going to pick somewhere and he's going to be the whole enemy army is just going to clamp up. Then you're going to be like, uh-oh, there's a psycho on a Maw Crusher coming our way. And he's going to be anywhere he wants to be. Fly keyword, double move. It's going to be anywhere on the board. I think the Stonehorn kind of does the same vibe. It's a bit of a shame. I'd like to see them have maybe some more mobility, some sort of spell that gives them fly or something, so they're truly proper scary. But they are proper scary anyway. I think just their ability to get boxed in by currently endless spells, and also obviously by just chaff lines. You're right that they can hit through, but can they do it enough? I think is kind of key point. But that's why I think the nice drop of the red stuff is in there so much, Dan. I think that's why Blood Gullet. I think it's that 6-inch pile-in that's probably the most important point there. So yeah, Nath, has the army ever interested you as something to play? Do you think it'd be something super fun?
I think it's a super fun army to play. I've not really been taken by the ogres. My bent on destruction is with the greenskin guys, but I've played against it a few times, and it's a good army. It's the 10. Those Stonehorns counting as 10 models is really, really good thing for them. and that proper turns them around into that's what makes them competitive, really, in my mind, is that the might is right, or whatever it's called.
I love peeking just like a toe of a Stonehorn onto an objective ring and being like, I'm 10 models now. And your opponent's like, but I've got a Star Drake, and you're like, doesn't matter, 10 models.
Yeah.
Bugger off with your twatty little sky dragon. You go back to the stars, you big dickhead. I have a big angry stone cow. And not even the Realm Lord stone cow, just a traditional stone cow.
Yeah.
So Hams fan in the chat says, what's the best way to start Mawtribes? Please, just buy 3 start collecting boxes and you're laughing. Like, they've got everything in there that you want. You'll have 3 monsters and you'll end up with a bunch of Mournfang. Great start to an army. It's also an MSU army as well, like, which is something worth talking about. Also, if boards get smaller, 44 by 60, that just means, baby, we're just closer. That's all I'm going to say.
More intense cuddles coming your way.
All right, well, I think that's us done for the evening. I think I've enjoyed this, and I hope, like, I'm really enjoying these series. I think it's like a nice way of like looking at stuff in depth, kind of like a refresher of the army to a degree, but really focusing on what's there and what's available. There are, again, other ways to play this, of course. This is just something that we see very common. So if you are potentially going to fight an ogre player, or you go into a tournament, you're like, I wonder how that works. Hopefully this is a good one. And it'll be interesting to see if next week if James ends up with 3 Thunder Tusks or 3 Stonehorns somehow. But we'll see.
I've got a lot of spawn to make.
He's going to have 3 of the ogre man-eater lady in fishnets with the rolling pin. She's the most beautiful.
She is the most beautiful. I really love Warhammer Age of Sigmar players. They're like, what are you into? They're like, I quite like all the magic and the dragons, but there's a lady ogre and a rolling pin, and there's a lady, a Troggoth lady with a bag. Baby!
It's actually a net, which is why she's so strong.
She's got she's got 2 bags on the front of her that are the bestest.
She's got a net bag on her back. The ogre lady has fish net tights. I'm just saying, nets are the most powerful thing in Age of Sigmar.
There's just guys like sipping their drinks, and they're like, and Neve Blacktalon's like, are they looking at me? And they're like, never. They're just looking past Neve Blacktalon. just drinking their drink, being like, is that a Troggoth I can see about there? Oh my god.
It's a classy little bar. Everyone's chatting. They're all flirting. And then in the back corner, there's just a Troggoth hag being like, smash! And everyone's like, yeah, you smash.
Right, okay. Let's do some shout-outs. Twitch chat, you've been amazing tonight. Thank you very much. I hope you guys have enjoyed it. James, you got any shout-outs you want to make for the end of the show today?
I'll just shout out, not you, because during the show you made me put the objective rings back on sale. So big shout out to the objective rings, which are back on sale.
They are back on sale. They are 100% back on sale.
We've sold some while we were on the show.
Oh, nice! If you guys want to pick some up, especially with the option of course, playing Age of Sigmar sometime soon. Nathan, you got any shout-outs?
I'm going to shout out all those people that don't put... I've seen some people sculpting clothes to put on their Troggoth hag, and that's not on. So I'm going to shout out the other people that don't do that.
Just like, you're like furious. You're looking through Twitter and you're like, no!
Did you just shout out the people who build and paint the model as it is, as compared to the tiny handful of people that convert it to be wearing more?
Is this like a sideways way of saying you saw one person sculpt clothes on a Troggoth hag and you hate that person? Have you seen it twice?
And I hate 2 people, whoever they are. I've forgotten who they are.
Somewhere there's someone who has no idea like about this show or anything, but someone watching it does, and they're going to be like, "Hey, Steve, just so you know, 4 blokes that don't know you, they hate you."
As Dydrin says in the chat, fuck those guys. All right, Dan, you got any shout-outs?
I'm actually I've got a legit shout out, not just because somebody took boobs away from me. But I understand that that's frustrating now. I'm going to shout out the wonderful War Dolly community of Vancouver because COVID restrictions have finally been not lifted, but slightly eased as we come into summer or into spring. So we can now have groups of 10 people in a bubble outside together. And the Vancouver community, or a handful of them, immediately went 10-person outdoor tournament. And I immediately I was like, hell yeah, War Dolly players. We haven't done anything in 2 years. And the first thing they thought, and they were like, cool, so we'll use masks and we'll sanitize and we'll be really, really clean. But immediately, the day it was announced, they were like, 10-player outdoor tournament. And I was like, oh my God, yes. I'm so glad, because I guess a big niggle in the back of my head is that we might come out of this. And in my head, I'm like, there'll be this frenzy and this thirst for games and for tournaments. But I was worried that a lot of people would have their War Dolly frenzy curbed or eased off. And the fact that that was the first place that so many people I know went, it made me so very, very happy. So they're going to be my shout out. Anyone who sees that and immediately wants to play more Warhammer, you're my favorite people in the world.
Perfection. I will, of course, shout out the Twitch chat. Also, everyone on the Honest Wargamer Patreon. Literally couldn't survive without you, so thank you very much. And also to our brand new subscriber, Rob Appo, has subscribed on Twitch. Don't forget you can use your Amazon Prime subscriptions for free. Costs you nothing, gets us some amount of money, whatever the Bezos decides. So thank you very much. Thank you to you three as well, you guys have made tonight. Also to Jacob Berry for filling in earlier as the Back to the Future Nathan. One of my favourite moments so far. Don't forget to join us again tomorrow, 40k Jason show. Wednesday, I'm going to be talking terrain. Saturday is the Games Workshop reveal, 12 till whenever. We'll be live for that, so for like 3 or 4 hours. So Saturday, if you want to tune in and hang out with us as we reveal, react in a offhand, hilarious, but maybe slightly sarcastic way. Who knows? Probably sincere. And then all of Sunday will be live, 12 till 10 for the birthday. So do tune in for that. You guys
Before you cut me off, Rob.
Oh yeah.
Carry on. But someone just asked for the link, so I'm trying to put it in the chat.
Okay. But I would also like to thank my podcast homies. You guys stay hydrated. This is just you and me now, podcast boys, and I just want to know, and ladies, you guys are doing great, and keep up the good work. Loads of love. This is my audio voice in your ear now. Congratulations. Right, goodbye. Thanks for listening to Honest Wargamer. You guys are great.